Years before Belinda was born, her parents were pen pals. Her father, Apollo Kataha, was in school in Europe while her mother lived in India. They exchanged letters until he visited her in India. They were married that same week.
From there, they try to figure out now what happens next with the culture difference, and interracial couples were not accepted back in those days.
Belinda's parents traveled back to Uganda for her birth in 1980, but shortly before she was born, her father returned to Europe to finish school. Her uncle named her in her father's absence.
They gave me the name Kamshuka.
What does it mean?
Kamshuka means something as small as the stars in the sky, having a great impact on its surroundings.
The family traveled to India, where they stayed for some time before returning to Uganda.
The family that my mom had was they just weren't ready to accept such a marriage, to accept children born with curly hair.
She was 4 years old when they returned, but her mother, who was not a citizen, went back to India, hoping they could rejoin her as Uganda was in the middle of the war. And when trouble came, Belinda, her brother, father, aunt and uncle hid in the bathroom of their house in Bakulimengo as the war raged outside.
Those same windows you see right there inside the dead people.
I remember the sounds of the men. I remember the laughter. I remember the gunshots. I remember the sounds of war.
She recalls the family leaving for India to find her mother. When they finally arrived, they discovered that she had left for the Middle East, so they stayed with her relatives for a while.
When my mom had me, and my family, the Indian family realized, oh, you now have given birth to African children. Nobody will accept them. Anywhere you go, they will not be accepted. What are you going to do? And the time when my father was finishing up his studies in Europe, they were suggesting that she would put us up for adoption.
In 1987, when Belinda's mother found a job in a church in Bahrain, they all moved there to live with her. The family lived in the Middle East until Belinda was 14, then moved to Canada. She narrates her experience growing up.
Going to a school where I can't tell you what I am in one sentence, because I'm Ugandan, I'm Indian, I have Portuguese, I have this, and I grew up in the Middle East. When people can't define you or label you or tell you who you are, they have a problem with that. And now you become a target. So I was bullied a lot in high school. I decided that I would not be bullied. So I flipped the switch and I became the bully.
Belinda got into numerous fights and turned to drugs and alcohol. She also tried suicide. When the fourth attempt to kill herself didn't work, she made the choice to change her lifestyle.
I chose to live, to really live, purposely. I chose to intentionally be who I was, accept my flaws.
Her husband, who was first a really good friend before they married, was one of the first positive influences in her life. She says he spoke life to her, and she wants to do the same for others.
And I run a program in Toronto called I Am Warrior. In this program, I share about how fear is our fuel. Not to use it to cripple us, but use it as fuel for our future. You can't control what people think of you, whether they choose to like you or not. For a simple reason, like a tattoo. It's the way they think. You can't really change that. But depending on the places I go to, I will form to what's suitable. So I have tattoos, but they're hidden. If I'm going somewhere, and then again, if I go somewhere where I don't want to look so conservative, I have the advantage of being myself, but also not being too on the top.
Around the same time, Belinda started getting drawn towards photography. Her first gallery show was in the Middle East. Now, she not only takes pictures, but speaks life into people.
I'm well known in Toronto for my photography and my art, but also for my speaking. And I speak at different conferences. I speak at schools. I'm a mentor in schools. I love it. I can speak all day. I share my story, and I hear the stories of others. I speak at women's shelters.
Her parents later became missionaries and evangelists to Uganda and India. Her father passed on 8 years ago, and her mother now lives in the U.S. Belinda is 35 years old, has been married 13 years, and has 4 children. She has lived in Toronto, Canada for about 20 years. Josephine Karunji, NTV.